Donald Trump is not only waging a war on the peaceful protesters in Los Angeles with the National Guard and Marines he is sending in, he is also waging a war with his lies, trying to spin up a false narrative about what is happening. And of course, he is deploying his press secretary, the most disingenuous liar in his administration, Karoline Leavitt, to do that. But unfortunately for Trump, Leavitt's not that great at her job, so she accidentally admitted to one of Donald Trump's lies during a press briefing in which she lost her mind and was attacking reporters personally. We're going to get into it all, but before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way in supporting the work that we are doing on this channel. Now, before we get into Karoline Leavitt admitting to one of the biggest lies Donald Trump has told about the situation in LA, I want to start with her getting confronted by Caitlin Collins for the crimes Donald Trump is committing right now.
Sure. Over the weekend, Secretary Noem sent a memo to the Pentagon asking Secretary Hegseth to have and direct the military that's on the ground in LA to arrest and detain what she said were lawbreakers. Is the president okay with that? And under what authority would the members of the military be able to arrest people inside the United States?
I can't speak for a letter that came from the Department of Homeland Security. I can't speak for the president and what's currently happening on the ground now. And as you know, the president federalized the National Guard under U.S. Code 10, which he has the authority to do. And our United States Marines and the National Guardsmen and women who are on the ground right now are helping to create a peaceful environment for ICE and Border Patrol, who were being, again, hailed with rocks, who were being violently and viciously attacked. They needed reinforcements, and so our United States Marines who are on the ground are providing those reinforcements to ensure the environment is peaceful so that these raids and deportations can continue.
But he realizes they can't actually arrest people unless he invokes the Insurrection Act, which, I mean, seemingly was not something that was in Secretary Noem's memo, a clear distinction she did not make there.
Again, you're trying to conflate a letter that was sent to the Department of Homeland Security to the president's legal authority. The president understands the legal authority that he invoked, and that's the current situation right now.
When it comes to federalizing the national...
It is Karoline Leavitt's job to lie. That is why she is there. And she can barely pull it off. The people in this administration are not good at their jobs. They are just dedicated Trump stooges. No, of course Donald Trump does not have the authority to be going in and deploying the Marines, to be deploying the National Guard, to be arresting peaceful protesters, to arrest anyone who is peacefully protesting his disgusting birthday parade. No, he does not have the authority to do that. We have to continue to use our voices, and of course we are, because Donald Trump is trying to suppress them. But he has a different view of what's going on, and Karoline Leavitt was asked about it right here.
Thanks, Caroline. The president said yesterday that paid insurrectionists were behind or involved in the protests in Los Angeles. Does the White House have any more details about who they believe is paying these protesters?
The president spoke about this last night when he returned from Fort Bragg, because frankly the president has a lot of common sense. And if you look at some of the imagery that we have received from the Department of Homeland Security and ICE and law enforcement who are on the ground, you will see boxes and boxes of very professionalized masks and rioting equipment being dropped off for these protesters. So it's a good question the president is raising, and one we are looking into, about who is funding these insurrectionists and these rioters and these protesters and these illegal criminals. And I have updates for you on the numbers, by the way. Since June 6th, there have been 330 illegal aliens that have been arrested as part of these riots in Los Angeles. 113 of those illegal aliens had prior criminal convictions.
The idea that people would have to be paid to oppose this administration just shows how out of touch they are. We want to oppose you because you're the worst president in American history. We want to oppose you because you break the law on the daily. We want to oppose you because you are destroying our country as we know it. And the reason people are wearing masks to these protests, maybe it's because they know that the National Guard and Marines are going to show up and shoot tear gas at them. It's why you saw countless protesters wearing sunglasses in LA, even at night, because they didn't want to get maced by Donald Trump's masked thugs. And those guys are wearing masks. For them, it's to protect their identity. For us, it's to make sure that Donald Trump can't physically attack us. That is what is abundantly clear. But they're going to try to spin up their false narrative, and that includes Donald Trump insisting that yesterday he was speaking on the phone with Gavin Newsom on Monday. And when Karoline Leavitt was talking about that, she slipped up.
If the president does end up deploying any National Guard members, perhaps Marines, to blue states, would he be in contact with the governors prior to this? Would it be necessary?
Well, President Trump was in contact with Governor Gavin Newsom, despite some of the claims he's made in the last couple of days. The president called the governor on Friday evening and told him to let law enforcement in California do their jobs. And the Los Angeles Police Department, by the way, are fantastic people. They are trying to do the work that they've so bravely signed up to do, to enforce the law. But they have been kneecapped by incompetent Democrat policies and Democrat politicians who do not allow their local law enforcement to correspond and coordinate with federal immigration authorities. And so the president gave Gavin Newsom a warning and said, get it together. 24 hours later, we saw more images like this. We heard.
Yes, it was Friday. It was Friday when Donald Trump talked to Gavin Newsom. Also, he did not warn him. He did not speak about the National Guard. Newsom even said in a conversation with Brian Tyler Cohen that he didn't even talk about Los Angeles. This is a complete lie. And the fact that Karoline Leavitt, as she was saying, oh yeah, Gavin Newsom lied. They did speak on Friday. Yeah, Newsom wasn't trying to say that they didn't. Karoline Leavitt is so caught up in her own lies, she can't even communicate what is actually true. She doesn't even know what's true. That's the MAGA mindset. She is just very clearly in a cult that is trying to distract from all of the chaos that is happening right now in the administration. And Karoline Leavitt was actually asked about those distractions right here.
On just everything sort of we've seen so far with the president's response to the LA protests. There is criticism that seems to suggest that the president responded the way he did because it was a deliberate, calculated attempt to sort of shift focus away from his feud with Musk. How would you respond to that?
The president responded to the LA riots, condemning the violence
from Musk.
It's an incredibly disingenuous attack. The president saw images of Border Patrol and ICE agents being hailed with rocks and Molotov cocktails. He saw vehicles being burned to the ground with illegal aliens flying foreign flags, and that's what prompted the president to have this response that has clearly worked, because last night in Los Angeles, you didn't see many of those images. And I would add the governor and the mayor need to actually do more. I know Gavin Newsom had a big address to the nation last night. I guess he thought that's what it was for maybe his future political ambitions, but he spoke a lot of words. We haven't seen action. California has been a mess for years because of the incompetence of Gavin Newsom, so the president was responding to that only. Caitlin.
I 100% believe that in some part, this is an effort, obviously, to distract from Donald Trump's agenda, but certainly his fight with Elon Musk. And to call that a disingenuous question, to call that a gross, what a terrible thing to say. Like, it's clear. Donald Trump began these attacks right as Elon was calling him out for all of the chaos of the administration, for being in the Epstein file. So, of course, Donald Trump is going to be trying to distract. That is no surprise. This is what he always does. They're just smearing poop on the walls. They're just like throwing it out there. This is what Steve Bannon says, flood the zone. That is what they're trying to accomplish. And at the same time, they look pretty ridiculous doing it. Just listen to what Karoline Leavitt had to say right here. It is so shocking.
Being blown during these protests. There are protest activities being organized for this weekend. Part of it are Democrats saying they want to reclaim the American flag. It's also being titled No King's Day. Does the president see himself as a king, and does the White House expect to see American flags being flown during these protests this weekend?
The president views himself as the president of the United States of America. This is a constitutional republic, and we want to see all of our citizens be proud of the country in which they are given the privilege and the blessing to live. And I think that those images of foreign flags being waved with, by illegal criminals and by violent rioters in the face of cars blowing up and of flames in the city. I have photos of that here to show you. With this violence and destruction that occurred is an image that Governor Gavin Newsom owns. This is his city, and President Trump saw these images, and he said that is not going to be accepted or tolerated, and hence why he deployed the National Guard and United States Marines, who have helped to quell that violence.
We should be happy that we're allowed to live. Do we now have to say thank you for that? This administration is absolutely ridiculous. And not only is their assault disgusting, but it's hypocritical. And that was called out by Senator Chris Murphy in a brutal takedown of Pete Hegseth that I want to take a look at right here.
I think this is extraordinary, Mr. Chairman. We're talking about a pretty massive investment of appropriations dollars into a plane that the Secretary is saying is currently planned to be transferred personally to the President. There's a lot of other pending needs that we need to fund. This would seem to be low on the list. Mr. Secretary, one final question. Obviously, you know that there is a concern in the public about a double standard that is applied to protest, sometimes protest that turns violent. The president, when he came into office, issued pardons to the individuals that attacked the United States Capitol, including those individuals who beat savagely police officers. You have deployed the National Guard and readied Marines in a way that many people think is unnecessary given the state and the local resources. So maybe let me ask the question this way so that you can assuage people's concerns that there is a double standard. The National Guard was deployed here on January 6th, and that was a decision made by the Department of Defense. Do you support that decision? Do you believe that that was the right decision to deploy the National Guard to defend the Capitol on January 6th?
All I know is it's the right decision to be deploying the National Guard in Los Angeles to defend ICE agents who deserve to be defended in the execution of their jobs.
But I think it's important to know whether you think it was also important to have the National Guard defending the United States Capitol when there were violent protesters here on the president's behalf, to make sure that folks know that you care about protest, whether it's against the president or on behalf of the president.
Senator, I was in the Washington, D.C. National Guard when that happened and was initially ordered to go guard the inauguration of Joe Biden. But because of the politicization of the Biden administration, my orders were revoked. And ultimately, because of the politics that were being played inside the Defense Department by the previous administration.
But do you support the decision made on January 6th to send the National Guard here to defend
I support
the
the decision that President Trump made and requesting the National Guard that was denied.
So you do not.
President Trump
you do not support the decision.
Support
you do not
for the
support
National
the
Guard
decision
in
to send the
advance
National
and was
Guard here
denied.
to defend the Capitol. I think that speaks to the worry that many Americans have that there is a double standard, that you are not willing to defend against attacks made on our democracy by supporters of the president, but you are willing to deploy the National Guard to protect against protesters who are criticizing the president. That's not how our taxpayer dollars are supposed to work. They're supposed to be used to defend the United States, no matter the nature of the political affiliation of the protesters. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Good on Senator Murphy for pointing out this hypocrisy and not letting Pete Hegseth get away with it. We are going to do our best to mirror his actions, call out this administration. Independent media is so important right now. And if you want to support the work that we're doing on this show, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video, and if you stuck around at the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.